topic is why are we so obsessed with weight? So we're going to be talking about body preoccupation. So just to get started off, I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Tshepang. Hey there to everybody who's joining. It's so good to see you guys. So I'm Tshepang and I am a non-diet health coach. I recently graduated from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, which is based in New York. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself and how I got here and why I'm so passionate about doing this work in the non-diet space. So in 2017, I went on my weight loss journey. I went on my first weight loss journey and I was really pumped at the beginning. I was super keen to lose weight, but more than that, I was actually just keen to transform my health. And I started out with those intentions, but soon enough, it became this quest just to lose weight. It was just a never-ending quest to reach a body that was not my body to have, right? Because bodies are different and I was never going to have the body that I was aspiring for and that I was seeing on social media. And so after a while of like being in that, hey you guys, hey Gidu, hey Bom.say, it's good to see you guys. After a while of being on that quest, I just eventually started really hating my body, and it didn't start out that way, but you know, it has been said that diets and being on an intentional weight loss program actually causes low self-worth and body image issues. So that was the journey that I went through, and being on that made me actually really angry. It made me really angry at the like social systems that made me feel like I had to change how my body looked and like I wasn't enough the way that I was. So those are some of the things that we're also going to be talking about today. But I just wanted to start by telling you a bit about me, my journey, and how I got here today. I also have this note pack that I made for myself just so that I can make sure to stay on track and touch on all of the points that I want to talk about today. So I'm sure that most of us have grown up like in a home where there's at least one woman who was always constantly trying to lose weight. Maybe she was on Wayless, Herbalife, all of these things that we have probably seen in our childhoods. And being around that from a young age conditions us to feel like our bodies need to be fixed, even though it happens at the unconscious level. When you become older, you start to feel like you need to change your body, and that starts from the time that we are young because of what we see growing up. So if you have seen that, if you grew up seeing women around you trying to lose weight, type influence in the comments so that we can kind of like start a conversation going. So the first thing actually that I want to start with is talking about some stats around body image, just so that we can see how much of a situation is going on in regards to this. So these are just basically like global population stats. And in a study of like more than 50% of adult women or of adults, 60% of women feel that they're too heavy and they feel self-conscious about their weight. Of these 50,000, 30% of women feel uncomfortable in swimsuits, and 20% of them think of themselves as unattractive. And I think the most shocking statistic that I had is that approximately 70% of adult women actually withdraw from social activities because they feel self-conscious about their body. So maybe like one or a few of these stats sounds relatable to you. And if it does, type relate in the comments below. I know for myself, definitely, I have in the past thought so much about social activities because I was worried about like, oh my gosh, is there going to be the right food there? You know what I mean? So I definitely relate to some of these things. So moving on, I wanted to chat about like, why is this such a big problem? Why is body image issues, especially for women, such a big problem? So there's a book that I actually read when I was in, okay, I see those comments coming in there. And yeah, these are really sad and scary things that so many women experience these things. But yeah, so there's a book that I've been reading. I've been rereading it since like 2017, and it was just amazing for me to understand why I felt the way that I did about my body. So this book is called Fat is a Feminist Issue. From the title alone, you can kind of hear that there's some seriously important information in it. But anyway, so the author, whose name is Susie Orbach, she pretty much breaks down like social forces that pretty much back women into a corner as much as body image is concerned. And what I'm specifically going to speak about today is this whole notion that in order to be desirable, in order to be like accepted and attractive to men, we need to have a certain kind of body, right? So it's that piece about like being desirable to the opposite sex so that you can have a husband, so that you can catch a boyfriend, catch a man, basically. And I'm actually going to pull out my book and read from page 37, in Susie Orbach's own words, what she says about this conditioning that we need to have our bodies look a certain way in order to be attractive to men. So she says, a woman's success in the world continues largely to be regarded as a reflection of her husband's status. In this battle for social survival, women are essentially competing on the basis of their sexual appeal, while other aspects of their personality are viewed as attributes to be paraded in the attempt to secure a man. Women's liberation is challenging this value system for both women and men. However, those of us in our 20s and upward have grown up with these values and ideas, and although they are being shaken up, they nevertheless continue to play a significant part in our personalities. Often we do not realize how much a part of us they are. So Faith is asking, what's the name of the book? Here's the book. It's called Fat is a Feminist Issue. So I'll say it one more time. It's called Fat is a Feminist Issue. Okay. So that pretty much like paints the picture of how as women we are taught to compete against one another, and basically the basis of this competition is how our body looks. And what are we competing for? We're competing for men. So yeah, Erin, you've got it right. That's the name of the book. Thank you for putting that in the comments. And then secondly, we have the whole issue of how weight loss in itself is an industry. There are industries that are created to profit off of women's insecurity. So these industries actually cause this insecurity and they also profit from it. So the weight loss industry is one, and also another industry that she speaks of is the fashion industry. Both of these industries paint a image that we need to have as women in order to be, I guess, acceptable in society. And let's start with the weight loss industry. So obviously, in order for the weight loss industry to make money, they need to sell us the idea that diets or whatever it is work, when in actual fact they don't. So the weight loss industry profits off of making people go onto their programs and fail and go back. And it basically causes you to feel insecure so that you buy the whatever weight loss program, blah, blah, all of that stuff. And what we see in advertising is that basically we're sold this idea through media that if you have a certain kind of body, if you have the thin body, you are going to be attractive to men, you're going to be successful at work, you're going to be happy, you're going to have friends, you're just going to have an amazing life. So obviously that causes insecurity if you don't have the kind of body that's being marketed to you. So that's, about the weight loss industry, but also with regards to the fashion industry. I mean, we all know, only recently are we starting to see different kinds of bodies, but for a long time, we've seen one type of body in the fashion industry, even the mannequins at the shop, guys. Sometimes I go to Woolworths and I'm like, I don't know who looks like this, genuinely. So that's the second part about the social pressures and how we end up socially conditioned to feel like we need to have these thin bodies that are not possible for everybody. So then the last two things that I want to talk about is, one, how does this context, this patriarchal diet culture context, end up influencing our relationship with food, our eating behaviors? And then lastly, I want to talk about some practical steps, some practical mindset shifts that we can make to unlearn diet culture. But I just want to check that we're all feeling good and we're all on board. So give me a thumbs up in the comments below, just to show me that we're still all Gucci. And then, I'll chat about the eating behaviors. So imagine that you are trying to lose weight, you find a diet plan, and you're like, oh wait, this diet plan is going to change my life. It's going to get me thin, amazing. So essentially, you're looking at food as a tool that you're going to use to change your body. So for a person, not just a woman, but a person who has a disordered relationship with food in relation to trying to change how their body looks, they're looking at food in this distorted way of food being a tool for reaching a body image, their ideal body essentially. And when I speak of disordered eating, I just mean the what do we call it? Spectrum. Really, disordered eating is a spectrum, and it's, it can start from basically like a basic diet, somebody who's toying with a diet for the first time, and it can end up all the way being a full-blown eating disorder. So that also shows how important it is to catch yourself right at the beginning of that spectrum, because it could spiral into being something a lot bigger. But so, okay, the 3 ways that I'll talk about how your eating behaviors can become messed up because of diet culture is, number 1, dieting. It's in the name, diet culture. So essentially we diet because we want to change our bodies, right? We want to be thinner, or we want to be more lean, or whatever is being marketed to us really. And then number 2 is overeating. Compulsive overeating is also a form of disordered eating. And in the book Fat is a Feminist Issue, Susie Orbach speaks about fat, literal fat on the body, and overeating as being a way to kind of like communicate with the rest of the world how unhappy or disgruntled or angry you are with the standards that are being placed on you. So it can be a way of like rebelling against diet culture essentially through overeating. And then number 3 is basically cycling between dieting and binge eating. Dieting, if you prolong a diet, your body sees it as starvation. Your body can't tell between self-imposed calorie restriction and starvation. And once you've been starving for long enough, your body will secrete really powerful hormones that are going to make you eat those foods that you were trying not to eat. So all of the chips, all of the ice cream, all of the things, because those are really rich in energy and your body is crying out for energy. So you might find yourself cycling between dieting and binging. Essentially, the bottom line is that diets don't work. If you start a diet, it will most likely spiral into troubled eating. It could even end up being weight gain, and you definitely are going to end up mistrusting your body, because dieting teaches us not to trust our body signals. So that's on the topic of eating behaviors. And then lastly, I wanted to talk about 3 mindset shifts that we can make to unlearn diet culture. So this is based off of the principles of intuitive eating. There are 10 principles, but I'm just going to touch on 3 that relate to mindset shifts that we can make. So number 1 is reject diet mentality. So essentially, diet mentality tells us that thin is equal to worthy, that dieting is equal to righteousness, and thin bodies are better bodies. So the first step is that we have to reject this. You might not necessarily believe that it's wrong, but you have to start rejecting it. And a symbolic way that you can do this is to throw out any diet book that you have, throw out any diet plan that you have, any meal plan, and definitely unfollow all of the pages on social media that are promoting anything diet related for you. So I just see this comment coming in. It says, so basically restricting ourselves actually makes us end up binge eating. Definitely it does, for the reasons that I spoke about earlier. So good for catching that out, Michelle. So that's number 1, reject diet mentality, and it really starts in the mind. And then number 2 is make peace with food. So making peace with food really just means looking at food as neutral. Diet culture teaches us that there are good foods